All right. First and foremost, all praise, all glory, all honor, and all thanks to the Most High. I also want to send all appreciation to His Son, the Messiah. Shalom, shalom to my people out there listening. I'm one of the children of the Most High, and today I want us to search the scriptures and to hear the law on the nationality of the Messiah. I want to deal with that age-old question of, does it really matter what the nationality of the Messiah is? I know that question tends to come up, especially within Christian arenas, as well as other circles. So I want to deal with that up front today. And spoiler alert, I'm going to give you the answer right now. Yes, the nationality of the Messiah absolutely matters. In fact, we can't even deal with the mission of the Messiah without also dealing with the nationality of the Messiah. So I'm going to explain to you how that works, but it's all interconnected. So as we move forward, one of the things I want us to keep in mind is we always have to bring it to the root of the truth, which is the words of the Most High. So, of course, we stick to the scripture, okay? Now, we use the books of Moshe, the books of the prophets, as well as the other writings that are included in the so-called Old Testament. But I also use the New Testament as well. But understand that you cannot have a full understanding of the New Testament until you realize what is also in the books that are known as the books of Moshe, the prophets, as well as the other writings in the so-called Old Testament. Because what's in the New Testament is really fulfillment and testimony related to those writings, okay? Now, with that in mind, you can even look at the book of Luke, chapter 16. In that passage, you would find that the Messiah gives a parable about the beggar named Lazarus and the rich man. And when he gives this parable, he explains just how important it is for our people to be familiar with Moshe and the prophets as part of the salvation of our people. Now, I'm going to deal with the law specifically for this video. And specifically, I'm dealing with laws related to kingship and the Messiah role. So if you were to go to, for instance, the book of DAVIDIC, also known as Deuteronomy chapter 17, verse 18, you'll find that the king of Yasharallah, Israel, as they sat on the throne, had to write a copy of the law for themselves. And that copy that they were writing was taken from the actual ancient manuscripts or codex that was held by the Levitical priests. So it just tells you how important the law was, not just to Yasharallah as a whole, but especially to our leadership. Which is why, if you were to look in the book of Proverbs, chapter 28, verse 9, you will find that whoever turned away their ear from hearing that law, their prayer would be an abomination to the Most High. And even as you go into the book of Maschiach, and you hear the Messiah say that he did not come to destroy the law, he came to fulfill the law. Very important, because we got to ask, well, how did he fulfill the law? And often when I ask that question, I get the answer, well, he kept the laws. Correct. Also that he taught the law, and he showed people the deeper things of the law related to mercy and truth, which were the weightier matters. And that's correct. I also want to push us to think a little bit more in addition to that. The Messiah also lived out the law. And what I mean by that is he embodied laws in his life. His actual life path demonstrated some laws for us as a people that were found in the laws that we were given from the Most High. So in that mindset, I want you to think of some examples. For instance, we got the law of the king's bloodline. You even have the law for redemption of the firstborn in Yasharallah. And then you also have a law known as the Kinsman Redeemer law. Now, those are three examples that I'll run through so that you can get an idea of what I mean. If we start with the law of the kings of the bloodline, for instance, you could go to 1 Chronicles chapter 28, verse 4. And in that passage, you will find that King Dawood stands up to his feet and makes a declaration to our people. And he basically makes a declaration that goes along these lines, where he says, the Most High chose me out of all my brothers, and chose my family out of all the families of Judah or Yehuda, and then chose the tribe of Judah out of all of the tribes of Yasharallah to lead his people. So the declaration was very clear. King Dawood was saying that the Most High had chosen him and his seed line specifically to establish leadership over Yasharallah forever. And he specifically says forever. Now, with that in mind, we got to realize that it's not just some skin deep outer appearance issue we're dealing with when we're talking about the Messiah nationality. We're talking about the law of kings, which is actually bloodline deep. So it's not skin deep, it's bloodline deep. And it's important for us to keep that in mind, because you could go to any kingdom out here and find that you can't just claim a throne. You have to have a royal pedigree. You have to have a bloodline relationship that makes you heir to that throne. Yasharallah is no different. And there's a precept to that you can find in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 17, verse 15, where the Most High gives his law. And he says, look, you may set any king over you whom Yahuwah your Elohim will choose. One from among your brethren you must set as king over you. You may not put a foreigner over you who is not your brother. So that's pretty straightforward. The Most High gave us a law that said that anyone ruling over Yasharallah had to be one of us. Now, so that tells you that it's not a skin deep issue. There's another precept to that you can find again in the book of Psalms, chapter 78. Once again, in that passage, you see King Dawood makes another statement to show that once again, the Most High elected the tribe of Yehuda, tribe of Judah, the tribe he was from, to be the leading tribe over all the other tribes. In fact, he even states how the Most High rejected the tents of Joseph, for instance, or the tribe of Ephraim to rule over his people. Instead, what he did was he specifically rose up Dawood, King Dawood, who actually used to watch sheep, and made him now the shepherd over his people, Yasharallah. Very important for us to keep that in mind. Once again, bloodline. We can't even take somebody with the debate of whether black or white, because first of all, those are misnomers, but it was never a black and white issue. It had to do with a bloodline issue. For instance, you could even take somebody from the line of Ham who may look like us because they also share dark skin like us, but if you were to try to put them on the throne, that would be breaking the law of the Most High. All right? So if we know that the Messiah had hair like wool and had skin that was the color of fine brass that was burned in a furnace, and we know that he was born in Yasharallah, which is located in Northeast Africa, how could we ever accept an image of anybody who looks like Caesar Borgia, the son of a Roman pope, to actually be a candidate for the throne? That's just a blatant insult to our intellectual status. So we can't accept that, but we have for hundreds of years. Now, even if we moved away from Northeast Africa, which actually our ancestors did, when we were exiled in 70 AD by the Romans, right? Millions of our people went into the continent of Africa that was in the southern region, and many of us actually went over to the West Coast area. If you were to look at a 1747 map, you would find that there was actually an area known as Negro Land, which is the area where our people migrated to in the West Coast area of the continent of Africa. In fact, if you looked a little closer at that map, you'd find that there was also a kingdom of Judah, or a kingdom of Weda, that was located in that area around the Slave Coast and the Gold Coast areas, the same area where slave traders came and picked up our ancestors and put many of them onto these slave ships during the transatlantic slave trade, and then dispersed us to all the different areas. So that tells you this is our heritage, this is our history, our ancestry that's been hijacked. Now, back to the Davidic SEEDLINE promise. If you go back to the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 12, where Dawood kills Goliath and then brings his head to King Shaul, King Shaul asks him, "Who is your father? Whose son are you?" And King Dawood, or Dawood before he became king, says, "I'm Dawood. I'm the son of Yassi from Bethlehem." So he establishes that he's the son of Yassi from Bethlehem. Now, if you were to look in the book of Yeshayahu, chapter 11, verse 1, you'll find that out of that same family line, there was a prophecy in place that a branch was going to grow out its roots. Now, this was talking about none other than the Messiah. So, that's why it's no surprise that if you then go to the book of Acts, chapter 13, when Shaul the apostle stands up before the people of Yasharallah, and he is giving a testimony about how the Messiah was actually that person who was raised according to the promise of the Most High as a savior for Yasharallah, was from that line of Dawood. He was from that same line that had sprung forth from Yassi. And that's why the Messiah was known by the title of the Son of David, or the Son of Dawood, because this is the lineage that he had. So, knowing that the bloodline is there, let's look at the law of the Kinsman Redeemer. If you go to Leviticus chapter 25, you'll find this law where Israelites, or our people Yasharallah, had a law in place that if one of our brothers was sold into slavery to a foreigner, as his blood brother, we had the ability to go and redeem our brother from that bondage, to buy him back from that bondage. And so that was a very important law, because that also played a role in what the Messiah was doing for us, his people Yasharallah, when he brought us back from the bondage of sin that we were sold to, because our people had fallen into going against the laws of the Most High. Now, and of course, the law or the breaking of the law is what sin actually is. Let's also look at the law of the firstborn redemption. If you were to go into the book of Shemot, also known as Exodus, chapter 4, right? When you get to that passage, you'll find that the Most High told Moshe, when he was going to see Pharaoh, that he should tell him that Yasharallah is his son, the Most High's son, even his firstborn. Now, keep that in mind, because as you go further into the book of Shemot or Exodus, you'll find in chapter 13 that anything that came out of the matrix of its mother first was considered to be the Most High's, whether it was of man or of beast, right? Now, also in that same chapter of 13, you find that there was a law in place where every firstborn of the sons of Yasharallah must have been redeemed. It was a law that they had to be redeemed if they were the firstborn sons. So if you make that connection back in Exodus chapter 4, where it says that Yasharallah is the Most High's firstborn child, it only makes sense that, of course, we were the people who were redeemed by the Most High. So once again, we're dealing with a connection between our status as a people and what redemption was about. And the Messiah also was sent for redemption based on these laws. Now, you can even go to the book of Yeshayahu, chapter 45, verse 17, and you specifically should use the 1611 King James Version Bible, because after that you see some translation changes that really cover up this fact that in verse 17, it says, "But Yasharallah shall be saved in Yahuwah with an everlasting salvation. You shall not be ashamed or confounded, world without end." Yasharallah was known as a world all in itself. We were set apart, which is what holy means, a set apart people. So we would consider our own world. So when John 3:16 or Yochanan chapter 3 verse 16 is read, people often think, for, the Most High so loved the world, they think everybody. But no, he was referring to Yasharallah. And if you go to Maschiach chapter 5 verse 24, you see the same thing, where the Messiah says, "I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Yasharallah." All right? Very important to keep that in mind. As I close out, I also want you to take a look at Yochanan chapter 18 verses 20 to 22, where the Most High actually has the Messiah giving his testimony that he spoke openly to the world. And right after he says that, he explains how he was teaching in the synagogue and in the temple, and wherever the house of Judah actually congregated. So that was considered the world that he was speaking to. He didn't say, "Oh, I spoke in, this continent or the other continents." He was talking about the places where the Jews or the house of Yehuda was actually congregating. Keep that in mind. Check out some of the other verses I put up on the screen. Shalom, shalom. Be well.